It was not until I actually started to heal my emotions that my relationship to food changed. I realized that there were a lot of unresolved emotions within my inner world from going through the loss of my dad when I was 8 and the loss of my mom when I was 21, both from cancer, having dealt with narcissistic personalities in my life, that I had buried my true self. I had buried the part of me that just felt any sense of authenticity. And I was operating from people pleasing mode, a lack of boundaries, not speaking my needs, not allowing space for my emotions and therefore reacting to others, not looking at the things that were painful in my life. And it manifested in my relationship to food. And I truly feel that I want other women to learn this same and understand. Like, I want other women to understand. I want other women to understand that they can heal their inner world and they can change, that you can change your emotional realm and change your relationship to food. So if you find yourself eating really fast when you eat, you're always finished before others. If you find that you just have no willpower over certain foods, if you feel like when you go out to eat, if you said you weren't going to eat that, it didn't matter because your friends or your family ordered it. And so now you're already 5 bites in, almost finishing the meal. This was me. And I felt like I could not change it for the life of me for so long. And I got desperate. Like, I tried so many desperate things to lose the weight. And it wasn't until I actually started to kind of put the weight loss on the back burner and start to heal my emotional realm. And so that's what I feel like is the key to having that relationship to food where it's healthy. What I realized was happening is the dynamic of feeling out of control in our lives. We tend to want to gain that control back with food. And food is the only thing that honestly you could really get whatever you want and eat as much as you want. And people are really not going to shun you about it. Maybe you have an overly critical partner or a parent around you or friend that might, but for the most part, society is not going to shun you and shame you for, ordering a pizza pie and eating the entire thing, right? But people will shame you, or you will look down upon if you will be looked down upon if you drink a lot of alcohol or do drugs or harmful substances that someone might judge you for and then you might feel shame for. So with food, we tend to get that control back with food. And so when we feel out of control in our emotional realm, we then look to food to gain that sense of control back. The other thing that I want to point out is that because food feels so pleasurable, it often gives us like a little instant boost of good feelings and love. And maybe when we were kids, I know when I was a kid, my mom used to always spoil me with delicious food. And so that association that I had, especially with my mom no longer being here, it made me really look to food for a sense of feeling loved. And so what I did was I realized that where else in my life did I feel unloved? And that I was looking to food to give me what I was needing instead of looking in within myself to provide myself with what I was needing, which was love. I was seeing and noticing a pattern that in my partnership with my boyfriend, with my friendships, with the people in my family, that I was constantly feeling like no one was really giving me that feeling of love that I was wanting. And it's not that they didn't love me per se, but whatever my inner child was trying to relay over to me and communicate to me was that she did not feel loved growing up. And so that part of me was trying to communicate and get my attention, but I wasn't paying attention. I was just using food to numb. So what I started to do was I stopped focusing on weight loss and like food because I totally felt like it would never happen for me. I was just going to be this size forever. And I started to pay attention to like when I didn't feel loved. And I started to notice that it was like with my boyfriend, maybe if he was giving more attention to our dogs. And I felt like he wasn't giving me the attention that I wanted. And then I would notice that my nervous system and my emotions were trying to get my attention in that moment. And instead of reacting, because typically what I do is I would lash out at him and I'd be like, hey, you don't give me enough. Why don't you touch me enough? You don't give me enough affection. You don't do this enough. And so I was keeping myself stuck in that loop of constantly feeling unloved, hoping that I could willpower it and control his response and get him to give me what I wanted. But it always ended up with more tension, more disharmony. And so, how many of you can relate to this where you keep yourself in that cycle and you don't allow the space and the room for that emotion to literally leave your body? And so, I started to basically let go of that emotion little by little, not in a drastic way. And I noticed that there were times where I just felt like I wanted to cry, I wanted to scream, but I would never take it out on him or take it out on the other person. And there were times where I slipped, but what I would always do is when I did slip, I would, at the end of the day, I would always review my day and I would say, like, where did I slip up? And I would write out how I would have liked to respond. And I started meditating, and in my meditations, I would start to see myself responding a certain way, responding in an empowered way, allowing myself to feel those emotions. Basically, when I started feeling like less of an emotional charge, I was like, oh my God, this is working. And I got so excited that I was no longer reacting from that space. What I didn't realize was that I was no longer looking to binge, or, I know there's a spectrum to binging, but like, for example, I would buy a whole bag of cookies or I buy an entire bag of Cheetos and eat the whole thing. And it was so unconscious. Like it was something that I would just do. And I know I wasn't supposed to be doing it, but I really didn't care. There was a part of me that was like, I don't care. And, so I started to notice that I no longer wanted to do that. And the light bulb just went off in my head and I was like, wow, you don't need to willpower your way to stop yourself from not having certain foods. And that's what we do. We restrict ourselves. We tell ourselves, no, you're not supposed to do that. This is bad. You're doing this. You're doing this. You're carrying out this behavior that's bad. No, 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 don't do that. And then, okay, I'll start tomorrow, and you stay in that same exact cycle. And so once I realized that I was essentially creating my unconscious habits were being created by my emotional states, I started looking at, well, what other areas, what other emotions are kind of like are happening in my life that I feel triggered by? Like what are some triggers and blocks that are happening for me throughout the day? And then I would work through those. So instead of trying to stop myself from changing that poor habit. Like I would try a little bit and a little bit to change the poor habit, but I would really focus on what emotion is coming up for me when I go to eat that food. Or maybe it's when I want to go to have that drink. Like it could be a sugary drink, it could be an alcoholic drink. But you have to start engaging with the feelings that are coming up with your body and not blame it on another person. Like you don't want to start pointing the finger and saying, well, you're the reason why I'm doing this. You're the reason why I'm feeling this way. Because what you're doing is you're giving the other person the power that is essentially telling your brain and body that you don't have any power. You've surrendered it over to the other person. So once you do take that power back by letting go, feeling your emotions, allowing space for your emotions, you will then see you'll eat slower. And eating fast is a sign that you're not present. If you're eating quickly, that means that in your life, you're also moving quickly. You're doing other things quickly and you're not sitting with yourself. Maybe you're not even listening to other people. And that was me and that still is me. Sometimes I have to catch myself and really allow myself to say like, okay, am I moving fast? Let me slow it down a little bit. I'm going to pay attention to every movement. I don't care if I look silly. If I'm closing a cabinet door in my kitchen, I close and watch my hand and I place it. I do not allow myself to start going from one thing to the other thing to the da 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 and like feeling like a mad person, a mad woman. I slow down, I catch myself, and I allow whatever feeling is coming up to come out. And really, that to me, once you can start to look at your emotions and understand that it's not actually as scary as you think it is. Listen, I understand. I literally spent the past 10 years of my life healing from loss and grief and painful, scary emotions. I used to have dreams almost every night that a tsunami was like engulfing me. And I started to look at my dreams more, and I started journaling them. And I was like, oh my God, I'm having this tsunami dream every day. But that tsunami dream was my emotions, water representing emotions in my dream were trying to communicate to me that I felt overwhelmed. I felt like my emotions were engulfing me. And that's because I was not looking at those emotions from the pain of the loss of my father, from the pain of the loss of my mother. And I was shoving them down because I just wanted to be happy. I just wanted to live my life. But the truth is, I could not truly be happy until I started to look at those emotions because those emotions were calling for me to free them, to release them. And once we start to see that even though it feels really scary and it feels really overwhelming when you're in it, like that I get. When you're in it, it's like, oh my God, everything is crashing down on me. Once you just have the understanding that your emotions are not like, as scary and like they're not as scary. They're not gonna ruin you. In fact, they're essentially you not looking at them is already ruining you in a way. It is because you are being controlled by them. Like you're rejecting them and repressing them. And so they're taking the front seat of your life and they're in the driver's seat and you're in the back seat. Like what the hell? I wanna live my life, but you're not able to. You're not able to because those emotions need your attention. And so once you start to peel the onion layers back, everything in your life starts getting better. It's not just your relationship to food, your relationship to money, your relationship to your friends, your relationship to your partner, your relationship to yourself, which is the most important one, the relationship you have with the divine, with God, with spirit, with nature, with animals, with children. Your relationships with everything and everyone around you is going to feel more whole and more complete the more you start to embrace feeling. You don't need to know what happened in your past. It's cool to know, it's nice to have that light bulb aha moment, but it's not necessary. All you have to do is notice when in your day, when you're falling into an unconscious meaning you are not you're no longer in the driver's seat. You're almost like you're like you've something has taken over. Like that part of you is driving and you're in the back like where are we going? And it's like it doesn't matter, shut up. Like that's essentially what's happening. So you want to pull yourself slowly out of that and then you're like, "Ah, I see you. I see what you're doing." You may even know where it came from, but that is again not necessary. Then you can allow the space for it. The other side note is that if you start meditating and understanding that the more you sit with yourself, the more you make time for yourself, the more you're going to be able to release. And then you will start to see you don't need to restrict food. You're going to naturally want to make healthy choices. You're going to naturally want to make choices that align with your body, even down to like what you're eating, in terms of like maybe you're plant based, but actually your body's calling for animal protein. Maybe you're vegan and then you want to be vegetarian, or maybe you're animal based and you want to become vegetarian. You will start to have a clearer understanding once you free up the space. You make room for clarity. And when you allow yourself to let go, then you allow yourself to make the choices that you want. And you don't have to restrict, you don't have to limit yourself. So, beautiful beings, thank you for listening. If you made it this far, I'm so grateful for you. My name is Melanie, and I will see you in the next video. All right. Love you guys. Bye.